Hello, MavMind Collective, and welcome to another episode of the HypnoSales Show. Today we're going to be learning how to say no to anyone. So in my customer-facing role, I'm often asked to perform certain tasks or complete certain actions or take certain next steps with my prospects, clients, or customers. Either the client or the prospect is asking me to do this, or my boss or my peers that I'm working with on a particular opportunity or an implementation. If it's post-sale, it's an implementation maybe with my prospect or client that, my new client, they just signed and bought our product and now we're going to implement it for them. In any of these cases, sometimes I don't feel like the request that's being made of me is something I agree with, or it's something that I feel like maybe there's a better path we can take, because I feel sort of responsible in my customer-facing role to make sure that the journey that the customer is on is the absolute best, most fantastic, awesome journey they can take. I don't want them to have any missteps. I want it to be the most wonderful experience that I can possibly create for them by taking them down the correct path, the shortest path, the easiest path towards success for them. And I feel like I'm successful when I can help them to be successful. So I think of my customer-facing duties as being I'm supporting them. And so sometimes to support them correctly, I need to advise them correctly. And when I advise them, I might have to occasionally tell them no to a request that they're making of me. And I think in the beginning of my career, I had a difficult time saying no to customers and prospects, or to my boss even, or to my peers. I didn't want to be that guy that said no to everyone, being kind of like coming across as being difficult, because that wasn't why I was saying no. It's just I knew there was a potentially better path, and I wanted to help provide that consultation and guidance to take that different path, that better path, easier path, win-win path for everybody. But it was difficult in the beginning, and I eventually discovered this particular technique I'm going to share with you today that made it much easier for me to say no with more confidence and with the right tone and attitude, so it didn't come across as me being difficult or me coming across as being, like maybe I didn't want to perform a task because I secretly didn't know how to do the task. And I didn't want, I wanted to be safe from embarrassing myself. I didn't want to say yes to a task and then not know how to do it. So, I might be saying no, and it might come across as if I'm trying to avoid the task because I don't know how to do it. Maybe that's true for you. Maybe sometimes you might not want to say yes to something that might embarrass you like that. So you have to say no instead. And we don't want anyone, our customers, our prospects, our clients, or anyone on our team, our boss, our peers, we don't want anyone to ever, look at us as if we can't do something. We always want to be able to show confidence to everybody involved. Yes, I can do it. I can step up and I can make this happen. So, but there are those times when you do have to say no for a legitimate reason, for the right reason, the correct reason, and you want to redirect everyone down an easier path to take. So I use this technique, and this has made it much easier for me. And it comes from it has a very hypnotic, subconscious type of a basis for it, and that's why I like it. That's why I include it in my MavMind method, because it's something that everyone can do. And everyone actually will agree, and actually it softens the whole no, telling somebody no. It softens that aspect of it and doesn't make it about the saying no. It makes it about, how to say no in the right way, and the no comes across as that guidance that I want it to come across as. I want it to be that guidance and consultation I'm providing to my client or my prospect, my customer, whoever it is. So the first step in this technique is just to say no. And you're probably going, well, why would you put that as step one? Saying no, that's so obvious. But actually, some people I've seen try to do different techniques like this to soften the whole aspect of saying no like this. They'll say other things and they won't make it about saying no. I'm saying in this case, you have to say the word no. You have to say no. And it has to be followed by a pause. Okay, so there's a specific way you do it. So when someone makes the request of you, you listen to the request, and if you know you're going to suggest something different and you're not going to do that particular task or that particular action or next step, you just say no. And you say it just like that, no. And then you follow it with the second step immediately, and you say because, followed by whatever reason that you want to give for why you're saying no. That's simple, very simple technique, very powerful, but it triggers into the subconscious the fact that you have a reason why you're saying no. So you have to say no, we're not going to do that because blah, 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 and you fill in with whatever your reason is. And the very interesting part about this using this word because right after saying no is that in the subconscious, as soon as you hear the word because, you know there's going to be a reason, and it taps into a part of your subconscious that you have to try to relate to as far as what the motivation is. So in other words, it distracts from the actual word of saying no, we're not going to do that, and the abruptness of that unexpected, like, what? You're not going to do what I'm asking you to do? It takes away from that because you go right into the next reason. And there's been studies and actually experiments that have been conducted that have determined, beyond a shadow of a doubt, with the results, that just using the word because changes the whole subconscious state of what's coming next. And that whole providing a reason changes the whole attitude and the tone of what's being said when you're saying no. So if you say no and then you say because immediately with a reason, it doesn't even matter what the reason is. As long as the customer or the prospect or your boss or whoever, your peers, whoever you're saying no to, as long as they believe that you believe the reason is true and it sounds reasonable, then they will accept it. And it's really difficult for any of us to fight that reasoning if we believe the other person has their own belief about it. Because it goes back to that whole modeling reality type idea that I presented on other previous videos. We all model reality to ourselves and then we communicate that reality to each other. So if I give you a reason based on my modeling of reality, it's very difficult for you to argue with that because you don't really need to understand and really put yourself in my shoes as far as how I'm modeling reality, but you just have to believe that I believe my model of reality works this way. And what I'm communicating to you in regards to that model of reality that I have, you have to believe, and you typically will believe, that I believe my own reality. And even if you don't agree with it, you'll still listen because of the curiosity of our consciousness to understand each other's subconscious and how we're modeling things to ourselves subconsciously. That's a communication congruency that's happening without us even knowing it. It's the same type of way that whenever you have body language going on, where you communicate with body language in person, if you've ever studied that, that's a nonverbal communication that we have that we're not even aware is going on. Well, the same thing is happening here when you use a reason and you describe a reason, even if you don't understand the reason or even agree with the reason. As long as you believe that I believe it, you're typically going to give me that comfort and allow me to have my belief, because we don't really instinctually want to disrupt someone else's belief. We don't want to try to change someone else's belief because we know that always starts a confrontation and creates incongruency when we challenge each other like that. So typically in a business sense, in a business setting, we're going to allow each other to have our beliefs. And we're going to, when we find out that it's a different belief than ours, then we're going to be more curious. Our mind goes into a more curious mode to understand why. Even if we don't understand or agree with the why, we just want to understand the other person. And we want to give each other that room to believe in whatever we want to believe. Okay, so the reason doesn't really matter. Now, it does help though, however, to have a reason that sounds like it matches up and it sounds reasonable. And so what I usually do when I provide a reason is very similar to what I've shared in other videos. I'll usually use a social compliance type of reason. I'll say, no, we're not going to do that because I've worked with other customers and that's not how I've found it to be the most successful. With other customers I work with, I found this other way to be more successful. Would you like to hear this other way that I'm thinking about? And then you can negotiate, from that point, you can negotiate and get them to change their mind into maybe taking this new route, this more easier route, because you've worked with other people. So it's kind of like that's why I talk about it in my power permissions technique. It's the same kind of idea. I'm using the social proof is part of my reasoning. Another way you can do it is you can just say, well, because I just don't feel comfortable. So that's the whole I'm not comfortable because that technique, INCB, the INCB method. It's the same kind of idea. No, because I'm not comfortable with that. And the reason, and you can even provide the reason for why you're not comfortable. The reason I'm not comfortable is because I've done this particular step with other customers, and sometimes it doesn't turn out the way that we want. There's a much easier way. Would you like to hear the way that I'm thinking we could go instead? That's much easier for both of us. So now I'm associating a different way that's much easier, but I'm still asking their permission if they'd like to hear it or not. So it's their choice to then say, yeah, I want to hear this other way. Then I can help kind of make it their idea when they decide to go this other route. It's their idea to change their mind to have me do this other thing instead of the request that they're making of me now. Because you got to remember, they're modeling reality the way they want, and they're making the request. It's reasonable that I might not want to do it that way because I'm modeling it differently. So that's what this technique's really about. It's about being confident to say no because I'm not comfortable with that, or no because I've done it a different way with other customers and I have a way easier way I'd like to suggest. Would you like to hear it? And that's typically the two different kind of responses I will use when I use this no because. But the idea of because just on its own, just that word alone triggers that mechanism that I want in their brain to change it from what would potentially be a confrontational type of approach where I'm kind of being too abrupt and maybe offending them. And it turns it into a curiosity thing to where then they want to help me be comfortable and they want to know what this new other different way that I want to take or this other suggestion that I want to make. And it's just a fascinating research that's been done. You can look this up. There's lots of experiments that have been done over the last 20, 30, 40 years on just this word because and how it triggers this mechanism. And when I discovered that 15 years ago, I started using this method and every time that I needed to say no to someone. So that's how I say no to anyone now, is using the no because 1-2-step process. Thank you for watching. I know you find value in these videos, didn't you? So if you like me or in a customer-facing role, I'm wondering if you want to watch another video now, all designed to help you get better at what you do every day. Or not. You don't have to watch another video if you don't want to.